a lot about us. We are the national network of community foundations committed to community leadership. So we were created in response to the 2005 report On the Brink of New Promise that was put out by the Monitor Institute. So we've been around since 2007, probably most well known for our framework for community leadership by a community foundation, and that was created in 2008. And we work every day to help community foundations build strong communities by advancing effective practices, sharing knowledge, and galvanizing action on critical issues. And so if you want to move to the next slide, Isis, we do this through a few different ways. A core to all our work is peer learning. So whether that's the individual learning opportunities that I facilitate through Setting the Table, which is kind of an introduction to community leadership, the Executive Leadership Institutes, which have really been a flagship of CFLeads over the years. And this next year, we are offering up our fall forum come the fall. But then we also have a team-based issue network side of our house. And so most recently, we've closed issue networks around gun violence prevention, racial equity, and economic mobility. And then also do work around field leadership and really like to focus our work around field building. And the next slide will quickly introduce you to our research around Going All In, which we started in 2019, worked with Candid and CF Insights to field a survey to the entire field, got wonderful responses back, conducted some interviews, and really pulled out 3 areas of momentum that we saw from the community foundation field, which are insisting on racial equity, amplifying community voice, and influencing policy and systems. And so we're excited to be partnering with Sarah and Taisha and Isis of Philanthropy Together on this webinar, because giving circles can be a great way of both insisting on racial equity and amplifying community voice and engaging those communities and community-driven philanthropy in new and different ways. And so I'm gonna kick it over to Sarah real quick so that we can get on with the meat of the webinar. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Len. And hi, everyone. My name is Sara Lomelin. I'm the CEO of Philanthropy Together, and we're so glad that you are all here. So let's get started. We're going to talk about, the million-dollar question. What is a giving circle? Why are those important? So first of all, who we are, right? We're Philanthropy Together. We're a global nonprofit initiative with the mission of diversifying and democratizing philanthropy by starting new giving circles and helping existing giving circles thrive. We support giving circles of all shapes and sizes that are focused on a wide range of issue areas with diverse and unique lived experiences. Our mission is, we believe in our mission that everyone is a philanthropist. We really believe that the landscape of philanthropy is shifting, and giving circles will continue to play a transformational role in bringing in many more and more representative voices to the table. More people of color, more women, more youth, more LGBTQ folks, those without wealth, people in rural communities, religious minorities, and many, many, many more. But first, to start, what is a giving circle, right? We love this definition by our friends at Amplifier, which is a network of giving circles based on Jewish values, based in New York. So a giving circle takes your mind, your talents, and financial ability seriously and makes giving a collaborative social experience. They create caring, generous communities of people who act intentionally, thoughtfully, and strategically together. And please, just think about those 3 words, because this is not crowdfunding. These are people that are intentional, thoughtful, and strategically giving together. So what are the steps that you need to have a giving circle? The first of all is you need a group that is going to create a sense of belonging on something that is bigger than an individual self, right? A group with shared values that gathers and builds a community and gets together. The second step is to create a space for discourse. As we have seen, in the past few years, we don't talk to our neighbors anymore. Polarization is everywhere. And giving circles create a space for people with different perspectives to get together to discuss, a common vision, to find the commonalities and the shared values and learn together. The third step is that group that gets together and discusses, they give with trust. The group decides together where they're going to give their money, their time, their talent. And they trust in each other and they trust in the process. Many, many times, most of the times, the pool fund of the giving circles is it's there before people know where the money is going to go, right? So people are given their funding before that. So they're trusting in each other in the process. And also that trust, because giving circles are closer to the communities that they represent, the trust goes down to the leaders on the ground. And then the fourth step, and for me, the most important, is to act in abundance. Giving circles don't stop at the financial gift. They engage beyond the dollars for amplified impact. So the end result is an impact that is multiplied by the power of the group. You get more money given out, stronger community, and bigger change, right? Giving circles are not new and definitely not American. They have been in existence for many, many centuries and generations all across the globe. Every single culture has a type of community philanthropy, right? People getting together, helping their own communities. And the amazing part about Giving Circle members is that they are not your regular donors. They are the donors that want to get engaged. They want to roll up the sleeves and be more aware of the issues. They want to learn not only about the issues that they want to support, but about the different organizations that are doing the work. And they want to learn more about philanthropy and about all the amazing programs that your foundation offers, right? So I have some stats here. 84% of Giving Circles give locally. This is great for community foundations. They're very connected. They're engaged. They're informed about the issues that they care about. At least 60% of Giving Circles are identity-based. Why is this important? Because Giving Circle members are often engaged in the communities they fund. They have unique insight because they are part of the community, right? Communities know what communities need. So by bringing more diverse voices to the table to raise and direct funds, Giving Circles are propelling greater diversity in the causes that get funded and really, redefining the landscape of philanthropy as we know it. So Giving Circles tackle much of the challenges that we see right now, right? Instead of a wealth concentration with Giving Circles, you have wealth abundance. Giving Circle money doesn't compete with corporate money or foundation money. It's new money coming from individuals. Isolation to community. People were hungry, especially after, how many years of COVID, to get together in community, to see people as family, right? Missing voices to a bigger representative philanthropy, anonymity to accountability, polarization to shared values, as I mentioned, and missing data to aggregated impact, right? We have more people getting involved. So as the philanthropic leaders and human beings and everybody, we're in this, changing social, political, historic moment. The whole world is in this moment, right? And the landscape of the world and the philanthropic sector is changing. Your organization may be changing too, right? You are trying to engage more diverse voices to create a stronger ecosystem around your community foundation. So Giving Circles sit in that, middle to create something that will help you tackle the many different changes that your organization and the world is going through. And I just want to show the theory of change. Not everybody loves theory of change, but we love it here. About the giving circle movement and collective giving, right? You see how in this theory of change, everything comes together. People are learning and connecting. They're pulling their funds and their time, and they're democratically engaged. Giving circles, there's research that has seen that people that participate in giving circles, they are more civically engaged. There are mini labs of civic engagement too. So many benefits of giving circles. And I'm going to pass it to Isis, who is going to tell us how to successfully start giving circles in your host institution.
Thank you, Sara. Yeah. So when we started off this work several years ago, we looked at all of the decades worth of research. There's been around a decade of research around how to host giving circles, especially at community foundations. And then we followed up with really in-depth interviews with about 15 community foundations all across the country who have been hosting giving circles. And we really heard from them what was hard, what didn't come out in the research, what have they learned over their time doing that. And from all of those insights, we pulled together a lot of interesting insights around how folks can do this best. Of course, none of this work will ever be 100% successful or sustainable. This is about individuals and people and community, but there's a lot that we've learned that we're happy to share with you today. And I see there's somebody in chat asking about the theory of change. Yeah, the theory of change is on our website as well. So to start, it's really important to think about, what does success, when we're talking about successfully hosting giving circles, what do you mean by success? And folks get into the work of giving circles for so many different reasons, especially as a host organization. Is it about advancing conversations of values and equity within your community and within your internal group? Is it about gaining powerful ambassadors in the local community, having increased new donors, expanding your own knowledge of grassroots organizations? It might be about increasing civic engagement or aligning with your own impact evaluation. So first off, we really encourage you all on this call to think about, what does success look like for you when you're even considering giving circles, and centering your work around giving circles, aligning to those success measures. As we did this work, we felt like there were 6 main things that you need to think through when defining what that looks like. So your hosting vision, how does it align with your mission, your outcomes, what you're expecting for this work, the actual design of the circle. This needs to be done in complete partnership with the community. This isn't you as a host organization coming in and saying what has to happen, but it's more about, how can you support leaders on the ground in designing a giving circle experience that aligns with what they're hoping to do and with what you can offer as a host organization. Really developing that strong relationship between host and circle. How does this integrate with your existing staffing and the supports that you offer, all of your existing grant making, the investment that you're willing to put into this work? This really is programmatic at the end of the day. The fourth big question is on the leadership piece. We'll talk about this in a second, but having the giving circles themselves really lean into their own agency in this work, that is the most important piece that we found to make this successful and sustainable long-term. This is not about a host organization doing 100% of the work and just having a few meetings with community leaders. This is really about empowering, to what Len was saying. This is about leaning into the leadership of the community itself. So how are you defining those shared expectations, and how are you really enabling leaders to own that work the way that they see the way it should happen? The fifth question here is around hosting infrastructure. There's so much to think through when it comes to data tracking, technology, how you're communicating, all of this work, both between the host and the giving circle, and then also externally as well. And then in terms of long-term impact, what is the impact evaluation you're looking for from this work? How are you potentially stewarding the donors in that giving circle within your own community foundation, the civic engagement piece, and the life cycle? And so what we've done through our Launchpad for Hosts program, which I'll talk through in a second, is really go deep into these 6 questions as individual modules. Just to give you a taste for that, the first big question is around aligning with your mission. And there's 4 ways that we see that you can think through this. Number 1 is really on the depth of purpose of your own hosting organization. Is this work about contributing to the culture of philanthropy in your community? Is it about showcasing your host organization's direct mission, or democratizing philanthropy, or shifting donors and leaders towards innovative giving models and equity-based practices? This might also be important to you because it aligns on the people focus of your mission and strategy. Is this about increasing diversity of donors and leaders? Is this about building from the passion of an existing group internally that you're talking through? The third way you can think about this is more programmatic and really wanting to develop and build out mission-aligned issues and giving more towards a specific area. And then the first is the final P is position. So increasing your own community visibility for you as a host organization and for the Giving Circle on the ground. This might be about piloting participatory grant making or other strategic shifts that you have as a host organization. So here are 4 ways that you all can think about how Giving Circles might align with your mission and with your strategic priorities. We developed these 5 building blocks for successful and sustainably hosting Giving Circles, and hopefully this distills a lot of what we've learned into 5 big things. Number 1 is clarity. It sounds really simple, but we so often heard in our interviews that the misalignment between what the Giving Circle was hoping and wanting to do versus what the host organization was hoping and wanting to do, that those expectations were sometimes mismatched. And so really starting from a place of clarity, even though it sounds simple, is really, really crucial. The second one is consistency. Most often through the past 15 years that Giving Circles have really been built up across the world, folks have been doing this on their own without necessarily a ton of long-term thought around how they want to run Giving Circles if they're a host organization. And so thinking through, if you're planning on hosting 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 Giving Circles, there are community foundations with dozens of Giving Circles out there. Having some sense of consistency between them is really important, while also knowing that every Giving Circle is going to be unique. That's the beauty of the model. And so how do you balance both consistency and leaning into the uniqueness of each Giving Circle? The third, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, is agency, really leaning into the passion and the leadership and the ownership of the Giving Circle itself. This is not about you parachuting in and deciding what the host, what you as a host organization necessarily want for the Giving Circle, but how are you working in a real deep partnership and enabling agency within the Giving Circle itself. The fourth, as Len was also sharing, and we agree with this completely, is on the equity front. So often Giving Circles are also made up of folks who might not necessarily know the philanthropic ecosystem. So they're also coming into this work with their own understanding of what it means to be a strong donor and doing really strong due diligence and all of that work. And so as a host, we find that it's your responsibility to really not replicate the harms of institutional philanthropy and really helping act as a leader so that the Giving Circle can also follow that lead. And then the fifth, we heard this a lot from one of the community foundations down in Florida that has been doing this work for more than 20 years, is what is yours to do? There are so many folks in this space. We're here, Philanthropy Together, CFLeads is here. There are other Giving Circles networks out there. So don't feel like you have to take on everything under the sun to make your Giving Circle successful. Really lean into the other materials that we have for you all as well. One way that you all can think about getting into this is this fun concept called a pop-up Giving Circle. And that's where you do what normally goes into a whole year-long process as a Giving Circle around meeting and building belonging and talking about values and discussing issues and deciding on a group to collectively pool your funds and give to. Doing that all in just an hour or 90 minutes can be a really great way of sharing this model in the community. Really inspiring leaders on the ground to potentially start a Giving Circle in connection to your host organization in a way that is, this work is so visceral, so actually experiencing it is really important. I think Sarah Lubin, who will be talking in a second, she did this and found a bunch of great leaders this way, so she can share more about that. So 5 starting steps to doing this work is number 1, really leaning into finding leaders and a founding team. On the host side, this is about doing a lot of outreach or hosting a pop-up Giving Circle. The second step is supporting the leaders of that Giving Circle that you're hoping to host through that startup process. The startup process of a Giving Circle can take many, many months. And so working with them to help define their focus and their values and the financial contribution piece really being that incubator is really supportive, and we give you a lot of tools to do that are all open source on our website. Number 3 is recruiting members and growing the circle, then actually completing that first cycle of learning and deciding and giving together. And then how are you as a host going to be supporting that giving circle over the long term? So those are the 5 steps that we suggest you think through as you start this work. I'm going to pass it over to have lots of time with our 2 guest speakers. We have Sarah Lubin, who's the Director of Collective Giving at the Minneapolis Foundation, and Tori Ergang, who's the Executive Director of the Chautauqua Region Community Foundation. We've been working with them for the past few years on their giving circles, and they have some words of wisdom to share. So Sarah, I'll pass it to you first.
Thank you so much. My name is Sarah Lubin, and Philanthropy Together is just a phenomenal resource. I've got to start with a shout out to them. They're just an awesome place to get started. I came to the Minneapolis Foundation actually after 15 years working in nonprofits. And I joined a giving circle hosted by the Minneapolis Foundation with the not so secret plan of learning how foundations give away money, which I think is important because I have found that a lot of people join giving circles connected to community foundations for that reason. And so in my 5 years as a giving circle member, I think the Minneapolis Foundation did a really great job of simultaneously taking us through understanding different pieces of philanthropy and the work that the foundation does, in addition to encouraging us to lead the work. As Isis said, like, it's really critical that the giving circle members and leaders see it as their work. Otherwise, it'll be a program of your foundation, and I think it's just not as impactful in that way. So something that I've learned over time is that shared leadership is really important, and it takes a long time to build that and keep that going. It's really easy to create a program and, to Sada's point, invite people to come to it. It takes a lot longer and a lot more intention to really bring together groups of people, to have them think about what they would like to do, and then supporting them, and guiding that. I really liked what Isis said about nurturing, not leading. I've described it as leading from behind, like figuring out what people want to do, and help that. And just really understanding that that does take a lot longer. And so just really be ready for that. The other thing that I think is really important, and this was highlighted before, is that giving circles are a way to democratize philanthropy. And it is really important that your foundation is supportive and in alignment with what giving circles are and what they are not. So for the Minneapolis Foundation, like in our strategic framework, we find that like change is personal, equity is a responsibility, proximity is necessary, and hope is essential. And I think that those all really ring true and align well with how giving circles exist. And because the foundation is really supportive of the work, I'm able to engage different pieces from our philanthropic services to our impact team to our marketing and communications team. We're able to really get support in all those areas, and from leadership, and that's so critical, and making sure that you can maintain circles that you have and have the support to start circles. The other thing that I really like about giving circles is that they build proximity and community, and they change the narrative of who a giver is and who a receiver is. I'm really excited about the prospect of starting Black and other BIPOC giving circles here at the Community Foundation. And I think that those challenge a lot of what institutional philanthropy is viewed as giving. And I think it challenges what people think of as donors outside of our communities. Like Sada said, philanthropy has been in the fabric of a lot of our communities, and it just kind of highlights that for different places. The super cool thing about giving circles is they can be nimble. Like Isis or Sada said, the guardrails that I consider for the giving circles that we host is like, obviously we have to keep it legal. And the only other guardrail that we really have is to not cause harm, or do our best to not cause harm. So we really spend time exploring some of the challenges of philanthropy and the challenges that have caused harm. And our groups are constantly evolving our practices based on things that we learn along the way, like speakers that we bring in, things that different members share. And you just kind of see that evolution happen. And the cool part about it is it can be nimble. The group can make a decision in a single meeting to change a way that they approach the work, which I think is so cool because you can apply learning right away. And then the other thing is just creating space for learning. I think, I feel like that's critical in the approach that we take is, I think it can be really easy to focus on the fundraising part. And for me, the most important part is the learning that you do both about community issues, but also about yourself as a donor and as somebody focused on equity. And so I definitely think it's important to create space for that. And so I think that about covers it for me.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I'll pass it to you, Tori.
Thank you so much. I feel like we could stop right there. Sarah has covered a lot, and everything that she said, I would just say sort of ditto to. So at the Chautauqua Region Community Foundation, we are, I would say we are a small to mid-sized community foundation. And so I'm going to give an extra focus and an emphasis on giving circles to my peers that are in this group who come from smaller community foundations. I actually think that we have an advantage as a smaller organization, and that the work that we can do to launch and host giving circles may be easier because we don't have large program departments. We have smaller staff that are cross-trained and wearing multiple hats. And so it's a lot more, maybe it's easier, maybe it's a little bit of a quicker process for us at a smaller foundation. So if you're here and you're thinking, I don't know how we would possibly do this or staff this or support this, I just give you a lot of encouragement. For us, we kind of find sometimes in life, you're in two different places and those worlds align. And so my experience through the Executive Leadership Institute that CFLeads provides annually in jumpstarting our journey in community leadership work, and then simultaneously finding Philanthropy Together's launchpad for hosts, and having those two experiences happen, within a few months of one another, at the same time that our community was transitioning a group of women who've been focused on issues facing women and girls, just provided a lot of alignment in one moment to say, wait a minute, maybe a women's giving circle is something we should explore in Chautauqua County, and having language around hosting a giving circle rather than it's not our foundation's circle, right? It's our community's circle, and it belongs to the women and girls of our community. And so what role might the Chautauqua Region Community Foundation play as a host? And so I think it's really important. It aligns perfectly with the community leadership work that we don't do things to our community. We should be a part of the community that is, of, by, and for the community in which we're located. And a giving circle is like just a perfect synergy with that. So we are much earlier on in our pathway. We're working with an existing group, as I mentioned, that is trying to find a more sustainable way to exist and kind of a new path forward. And so that coalition of Chautauqua County women and girls, and they're committed to seeing women and girls in our community thrive. And really a giving circle is the next iteration of their work. And so we are in that, I would say we're in the first 2 steps of that 5-step process that ISIS had up with all those great graphics, where we're really working with some leaders and building that initial leadership team. And we're moving slowly. I think Sarah also talked about pace. And so one of the lessons learned is that things don't move as quickly when you're doing them the right way, when you're trying to launch a giving circle in the best way, and learning from the examples of those who've gone before us. So we're building a leadership team and trying to be intentional, that it will be diverse, that it will be representative of the community, and that it will be comprised of folks that are really passionate about this. They don't just say yes because someone sort of twisted their arm. They're really deeply engaged. And so we're working on that. And then really thinking through how we can structure this in a way that's very local and community driven, in terms of what the buy-in amount is, what the commitment timeframe is, the structure that the circle will have, how it will make decisions, how it will govern, the types of events that it wants to host. So every decision gets to be localized and owned by the circle. And really our job at the Community Foundation is to just bring resource. And I think so much of Philanthropy Together, if I had any lessons learned, it would be to anyone who's thinking of doing this or who's done it and had a rocky start, immediately go to Philanthropy Together and get as much resource as you can. There's no reason to sit in a room by yourself or with your team and struggle or be confused or not, wonder who you could talk to about things. I have found that the folks that are running giving circles, both in volunteer capacities and at host organizations, are some of the most generous people I've ever met with their time, their ideas. They want to help you avoid any pitfalls that they encountered. They want to share their lessons learned. And more than anything, they want you to succeed. So I would encourage that. And I would just reiterate that I think for a smaller community foundation who is deeply committed to doing community leadership work, I think that this Women's Giving Circle is a great opportunity for us to lean into that, and to help to serve our community, and to, rather than it being about the community foundation, it can really be about the community. And in this case, we're hoping that working with the women and girls will just be the first step for us, and that will launch other work.
Thank you both so much. Those were wonderful, wonderful commentary on giving circles and hosting them. Before we dive into questions, we just wanted to share a little bit. We've talked about this concept of Launchpad for Hosts, which is the program that we run at Philanthropy Together. And I just wanted to share a little bit more background in case anyone would like to join us. It starts February 28th to April 4th. It's a 6-week program, but that's really just the start. Once you're part of the Philanthropy Together family, you're welcome to join all of our other programs as well. Applications are due on February 15th, and we have a special 20% off code for anyone who's here on this webinar today. So hopefully you all will want to join us. We've trained over 500 folks, both on the hosting side and individuals. This is just a small snapshot of the people that have gone through our programming. And it's just wonderful to see when we're talking about democratizing and diversifying philanthropy, this is actually what it looks like. These are all folks from communities looking to do this work and have a real fun time doing it. There have been over 54 different community foundations and organizations and Jewish federations that have gone through the program the last 2 years. This is our 3rd time doing the program. We hope you all will join us as well. What you get out of this program, you get a 150-page printed toolkit. The first class didn't get it, but the second class did, and we're excited to bring it back again for this 3rd year, where you can take notes as we're going through all of the different materials and jot down reminders for yourself. So that's a really great tool to package everything up around how to host giving circles. We have a community forum where all of the recordings from our trainings will be posted, and you can ask questions. As Sarah and Tori were both sharing, this work is so great because it's about the collective and it's about building these relationships. So being in a class of people who are all going through this process together, and that community building is really, really valuable, and the way that you can make connections and ask questions from across the globe. We do a lot of interactive breakout time. So for example, this is an activity that we do one of the weeks where we actually say, here are all the different things that host organizations typically do for giving circles. Let's actually bucket those out. What are the things that you definitely want to do as a host organization to support giving circles? What are the things that you know are a complete no-go because you don't have the staff capacity to do so? So really tactile activities to go deep into what this work can mean. We have tons of workbooks and templates and tools. I know Sarah, when she went through this program, took our strategic plan workbook and just literally put their name on it, rebranded it, and used that as a way to get her board involved in this work. So we're really trying to make this stuff turnkey so that you all don't have to reinvent the wheel. Sample cost calculators. This one is from the Community Foundation of Northeast Florida. So there's lots of great things that we're trying to offer to make this work simple. And then we do offer one-on-one coaching and group coaching as part of this work, and it's all included in this. So we hope you'll join us. If this sounds interesting, reach out to Ty if you have any questions, if you want to get on a 15-minute call to learn more about this. The 20% off discount is CFLeads 23. And there's an additional early bird discount of $200 off if you sign up before November 15th. So, we're a nonprofit. We're really trying to make this very accessible for folks to get into, but would love for you to all join us. And with that, I'll close out the slides and we will start a discussion around some of these questions that came in, which are wonderful. So please keep them going, and we can also have folks unmute. There was one amazing question from Kate at the Albuquerque Community Foundation. Do you want to go off mute, Kate, and ask your question live?
Sure. So, hi, my name's Kate. I work at Albuquerque Community Foundation. We're working to start a giving circle serving the LGBTQ+ community. One question that has been for us is, how do you reconcile democratic engagement, voting on a grant, with kind of the trust-based philanthropy or equitable approach of avoiding that competitive hierarchical environment for nominees and applicants? A lot of times voting involves ranking the best or the most deserving organization, and we want to try to avoid that. One thought, we've had a multi-year cohort, but I'd be interested in any feedback or input.
Great question. Sarah or Tori, either of you want to share?
I feel like this is an art and a science, and I don't have the answer, but I can share the different things that we've tried. First of all, we try to reframe it in saying that everybody's deserving, and it's not a matter of who is better. It's just a matter of there are tons of people doing great work, and who is the group focused on, or who is the group most passionate about. And I think that helps with reframing. We have tried with Fourth Generation as an example of one of our groups. We do a combination of voting and consensus. Consensus is always tough because it can get uneven if you have people that speak out and are convincing. And then voting, for the very reason you talked about, is challenging. So we try to do a mix, and we're always evolving and asking people for feedback in different ways of doing it.
Something else we always recommend to folks is also to not do an open application process. Don't get 50 applications in from small grassroots organizations. You as a host organization already probably know many great groups in your area. So that's one other way, is you can, as a host, suggest 2 or 3 groups to the Giving Circle if they are looking for folks for the pipeline. And if not, doing a little bit more of a nominations process within the Giving Circle itself, so that doesn't have to come out, so that folks are looking at 3 organizations and not necessarily 20, and really feeling like it's a long list. And we often also recommend, trying to, if you have 3 organizations that are the ones that you're looking at, how could you give part of the pooled funding to each of those 3, but at different percentages? Sarah, anything you want to add?
No, something that I totally agree with both of you. It's all about how you phrase it, and the donor education that you can do as a host institution, right, for the Giving Circle members. That is trust-based philanthropy is about creating real relationships and deep relationships with the leaders on the ground. And again, how you phrase that, all the organizations that you're looking at are deserving, right? There is not a right answer. It's not a competition. And again, if the Giving Circle has $10,000 to give, just you provide, the suggestions of organizations, and not get, the Giving Circle members to go finding or asking for 50 applications.
We also suggest really aligning on shared values at the start of a Giving Circle process. And so that can also make that less of a deserving conversation and more about a values alignment conversation, which is wonderful. Jamie, do you want to unmute and ask your question about issue area expertise within the foundation?
Well, hi, Philanthropy Together. I'm talking to you all the time trying to figure this out. I think our hang up is really a staffing issue. At the far end, thinking about, so I guess my questions are sort of twofold. One is, who actually leads the work when you're already staffed, you're already fully staffed, and thinking about moving the work forward, but also if a giving circle chooses a specific issue and you are that staff person leading it forward, but maybe it's not your issue, right? Yeah, whatever it may be. And so I'm just thinking, how do you, many of our donors really see us as experts and, thinking about us as leaders. And so how do you, if you don't have that expertise in that specific topic that a giving circle may choose, how you kind of lead that? I don't know if that makes sense, but anyway, just.
No, it makes sense, Jamie. And I would say lean in your community and invite experts. I think Sarah just put it on the chat too, because many giving circles, even though they can start focusing a specific issue area, maybe they get more specialized, or maybe, 2 years later, they want to focus on something completely different. And we, in my years leading giving circles, we always bring in experts to talk about, the issue area. Every grant cycle, one of the sessions was bringing experts that were not talking about a specific organization, but they were talking about the issue and the opportunities and the initiatives that were going around, to tackle that issue and the challenges, etc. More about the landscape. And even if it's the same issue every year, you can focus on something more, like nuances on different things every year, but bring experts.
I think another important thing is just the humility of a host organization and a giving circle working together, that it doesn't have to be thought of as giving circles are this, cute thing with donors that don't know anything, and then you're the host organization that knows everything, but really evening that power imbalance and that playing field. That great, you care about gun violence. We've never done anything on gun violence. We're also excited to learn about that. Let's bring somebody in, even virtually from across the country, who might be an expert on that topic, and we can all learn together. I think that's the kind of power shifting that we're really excited about as well. Tori, do you want to share a little bit about the staffing question? I know you shared it a little in your remarks, but you want to go deeper there?
Well, and I just wanted to follow up on that. So I think at community foundations, sometimes we can get, so I just put in the chat about using your donor advised fund holders as a possible another funding source for things that maybe the giving circle, like this is something that's been kind of evaluated. It's a great opportunity. You can bring that to donor advised fund holders. On the other side, Jamie, I don't want to confuse us that donor advised fund holders often look to community foundation staff as issue area experts, and they really want our recommendations. And it's very hard. I think we have to separate that model from the hosted model, right? Where, just like Isis was just saying, right? We need to be comfortable not being the experts. And in fact, it's dangerous. I think even if we have the expertise in an issue area, we have to allow the collective to learn together. So it's great to have donor advised fund experience, but it's so challenging to keep that as a separate knowledge base, a separate approach. It's a different thing.
And I think it's repeating that it's their group and not yours. The other day I had a group that wanted me to define their topic for them. And I'm like, it's not my definition of your topic, it's yours. So it's really just always like encouraging the leadership to come from the group.
Thanks for that question, Jamie. Let's see. Andrea had a question a little bit earlier around who does and leads the outreach for giving circles. Do you want to unmute and share your question live?
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, I was just wondering, and I got some answers in the chat that it sort of depends, but my question was, how do you recruit members? Who does it? Who leads that? Yeah, thank you.
I can kick it off by just saying that, as a reminder, beyond hosted giving circles, there are grassroots giving circles popping up all over the world, in every single country of the globe. And those groups are getting together and recruiting members on their own. Like, this really is comes from a place of passion for this work. This is not about you don't have to view it only as like which staff person is going to do this, but really tap into the passion and the power and the agency and the leadership of the Giving Circle founding team itself. That's why we recommend starting with 3 or 5 people that are really going to lead this charge. And then the way the Giving Circle math goes, if you have 5 people who each invite 5 people, that's how you can start getting your Giving Circle off the ground. Sarah Lubin, anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, I agree. The Giving Circles recruit their own members. Something we encourage them to utilize is social media. So like reminding them that each member's like social media, I think like Taisha, their group might use Facebook. Our group, we actually have one of the members is like a social media manager. And so it's their job to make sure that they're posting and encouraging our other members to share. And then what our foundation does is when it makes sense, they then also like share out, like if we have a major event coming up or if we have like a recruitment event happening, they'll share it to the larger community, but the vast majority is driven by people's social networks.
Yes, and I would just add that sometimes, you know, one of your board members may be interested in being that liaison between the foundation and the Giving Circle. So that board member could invite a couple of people to be part of the initial core group of the circle, and from there it starts growing.
We have another question from Erin around paying dues and what to do there. And Sada, you shared about the recurring donations. One thing we also wanted to share with everybody that the landscape of host organizations supporting Giving Circles is also really shifting day by day. Giving Circles, 40% of them used to be hosted 10 years ago, and we're redoing the research right now, but we think that number is actually declining because there's so many more online platforms that also enable Giving Circles to get that fiscal sponsorship back end of holding the money and dispersing the money to get the tax incentive versus a host organization. And so tools like Grapevine make that kind of automatic collection of donations really easy. And there are ways for you to use tools like Grapevine as a host organization to still collect the donations on a regular basis, to manage the group, to enable the Giving Circle itself to lead with agency and ownership around their work. But then the funds would still flow through your host organization and you would be the one deciding the granting process. So that's one thing to consider around the back end management and expertise. Dina, I see a few questions from you. Do you want to unmute and ask them?
Let's see. Hi there, everybody. I'm Dina Jack, and I actually was typing another one, Isis, because you brought something to mind. But first of all, so we have 3 Giving Circles at the Texas Women's Foundation. And one of the issues we run into regularly is their fundraising activities, and they want to hold large events. And so how they want to use our platforms to raise that money. Sometimes they require insurance for these events that then go onto our books. So it gets very complicated there. And then my second question real quick, Isis, is your topic about online hosting makes me wonder if hosting Giving Circles may not be going the same way for community foundations that donor advised funds is, in that as donor advised funds are also more and more held by corporate entities, it's become less a part of the business model for a community foundation, and maybe Giving Circles are going the same way. So 2 different questions.
Thank you. Corey, you want to jump in on either of those?
Well, I feel like Sarah might, because she has a little more experience on the ground, she might be a better one to respond to how things are handled. Our intention with the Giving Circle is not to have fundraising events, but to simply have the annual payment made, and we are prepared to have that come through our online platform, and we recognize that. As far as insurance for events, again, we're hosting, and so it is an activity of our foundation, and so we would offer insurance to that just like we would for anything else.
Thank you.
Yes, I can add, Dina, that the Giving Circles that used to manage at the Latino Community Foundation, the Giving Circles had like a separate fund for their events. So they would, that was not managed by the foundation unless the foundation was organizing an event for the Giving Circles.
Giving Circle.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And so Isis, what do you think? Is the future of giving circles at community foundations going the way of donor advised funds? That might be going the way of donor advised funds.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Jury's out in a post-COVID, still COVID world, but I think that's why we're have a program like our Launchpad for Host program, because we see so much potential for the dual benefit of giving circles also getting a little bit more structure and support and knowledge base, so they're not just out on their own and potentially replicating harms and not doing this in a really strong way. There's so many amazing benefits of having a host organization, but because it's happening so easily now with these online platforms, we're trying to acknowledge that we hope that host organizations see this as a worthwhile programmatic effort to invest into, perhaps slightly less on the business model front, but more about the impact in the community and the connection to local leadership, that's the piece to really uplift and why that's so important. On your other question, one other thing we see is that asking folks up front to sort of pay their dues, but then also to put in an extra 10 or 15% into a whole separate pot for all of the administration fees, and really shifting that mindset away from the perpetuating other myths and harms in philanthropy, that this work does require overhead. And so starting up that conversation on the front end can be really helpful as you do that. And also letting folks know that holding big fundraiser events doesn't have to be part of what this work looks like. I think there are sometimes folks come into Giving Circle work thinking, oh, I have to put on all these events and that's the only way that we can raise funding. And that's not actually true. And so maybe you as a host organization can also draw some guardrails around what you think might be stronger ways of doing that in conjunction with the Giving Circle itself.
Thank you so much.
Jen, I agree with your comments. I do feel that, Fidelity or Schwab or Vanguard, they're never going to replace a community foundation as, the link with community, right? They can manage DAVs, but they don't have the expertise and the knowledge of what is going on in your local community. So
Did we answer everyone's questions? Anyone want to unmute? I think we probably have time for one or two others.
I have a more technical question, if that's okay.
Yeah, hey, Sara.
Hi. So I was wondering, what are the range of fees that are provided to Giving Circles? Are there fees? Are there not fees? Like, how does that look like as far as, I don't know, I'm not sure of the range at all.
Great question. I am going to let Sarah and Tori set the specific examples, but what we have seen is that community foundations charge anything from, as low as 3% all the way to 12-15% of the money raised, depending on the, the services or what you are offering to the Giving Circle.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback on that. What I saw was like an average of 10% when you really looked across, like when I looked at especially places that wanted to be like high touch, like where they really used a lot of staff time. And I will offer, like, for the most part, that was just to kind of defray meeting costs. Like these are definitely like an investment in community if you are advocating staff time to it. But I think to the point of, like, I think that's one of the important things about hosting it at a foundation. Like, that is one of the values of hosting it at the community foundation, is really like offering those connections and those resources to communities that they might not have on their own. So that's kind of what we've been looking at as well.
And Sarah, we're early on, but our plan right now is to offer staff in kind to get this launched and to really, track what that looks like, how, what does it cost? And then understand at our board level, is that a choice we're choosing then maybe to invest our time in that type of community leadership work? Is that a way we'd like to allocate our staff time and our unrestricted capacity? If not, then we'll have to figure out a pricing structure. But direct expenses, so expenses related to the events or materials or things like that, we're fortunate that we're working with an existing group, and they had a non-endowed donor advised fund, and they're able to utilize those dollars that had been previously raised to cover the cost of those direct expenses while we're in this kind of launch phase.
Awesome, thank you. That's really helpful.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Tori and Sarah and Len and the whole CF Leads team. We hope that everyone learned a little bit more about giving circles and ways that you can host successfully and sustainably. We really, really hope you join us in our Launchpad for Host program coming up and ask us more questions there. We also have monthly 90-minute trainings for individuals, for anyone who wants to learn more about giving circles and get started more at the grassroots level. And so that can also be of benefit to any of you here from a host capacity. We'll share our emails in the chat as well. And otherwise, we hope to see you live and meet you and build community together in February. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.